Family and fiancé pressured me to reconcile with my dad, who left for his new family, but I refuse. Now I'm left feeling isolated. When I was 13, my father had an affair, left my mother and moved in with his affair partner, whom we will call Janet. My sister and I used to see him every weekend, and I have to confess that he was a decent father, but I never liked Janet. When Janet became pregnant and they had a son, our visits became less frequent, and my father became more worried about his new family. He missed some of my performances and my sister's competitions because he was preoccupied with his son. Janet chose to relocate when I was 16 years old in search of a better job. My sister and I begged him not to leave, but Dad simply responded, "I need to prioritize my family." He moved 10 hours away, which effectively destroyed our relationship. I decided to maintain no contact because it was evident he did not consider me family. My younger sister remained in contact with him. He would try to call and invite me to visit my sister, but I refused. When he returned to see my sister, I refused to talk to him when he arrived at the house. I did not invite him to my high school or college graduation. I'm now 33 and have had no touch with him. He has tried to contact me several times over the years, and his family has reached out on his behalf. I've avoided family gatherings in case he attends, such as my sister's wedding and baby showers. My father and his family returned to our hometown 3 months ago, and he has been tireless in his efforts to reconcile. My half-brother and sister have both expressed interest in a relationship with him, stating that he is an excellent father. My father found out I'm getting married and has been attempting to contact me, even speaking with my fiancé. Janet messaged me, stating I had continually broken my father's heart, that I am sad, and that I should get therapy. I reacted, calling her a expletive, and then blocked her. Everyone seems to be urging me to accept him back into my life. I'm weary of being harassed and unintentionally running into my father and his family in town. Whenever I see them, I simply walk away and refuse to speak. People keep telling me he's a decent father who did his best to stay in touch, but I pushed him away. The pressure is immense. My mother, sister, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and even some friends all insist that I reconcile. Even my fiancé has begun to question my decision to exclude him. Update 1. I recently chatted with my fiancé and regrettably things didn't go well. I've had enough and want to run away. My fiancé, whom I will refer to as Larry, is aware of my background with my father and Janet. I stated that his siding with my father and pressing me was harming me, and that as my fiancé, he should be supporting me. Larry informed me that he cannot support me in doing anything that he believes is bad. He said he spoke with my father, heard all sides of the story, and believes we can resolve things if we sit down and chat. I told Larry I didn't want to communicate with my father and asked why he was talking to him. Larry revealed that his father, who is acquainted with my father, pushed him to contact him. He then informed me that my father adores me and has always wanted to be a part of my life. He even has images of me, which I believe he obtained from family because my social media is private. Larry stated that my father is heartbroken over our estrangement and that I was unfair in asking him to move away when I was young. He also claimed that I started off on the wrong foot with Janet and that I was not to blame for the relationship's failure. Finally, he informed me that everyone can see the truth except me, and that I should look in the mirror since I am the problem. Needless to say, I burst out crying and asked him why he was doing this to me and not supporting me. Larry claims to love me, but he won't stand by and let me be a cruel expletive. After he said this, I stood up, told him that he shouldn't marry a cruel expletive, and left. I am currently sitting in my car and my phone is blowing up with Larry attempting to call me, but I do not want to speak with him. I feel as if I'm losing everything and everyone, and I have no idea what's happening. Update 2. I know many of you are encouraging me to break off all contact with my family and leave town, but it is not an option for me financially. I wouldn't be able to start my business somewhere because I've invested all of my money in it and have only recently generated a consistent revenue. Relocating is not viable. I adore my friends and family and don't want to cut them off. I grew up in this town, and I'm not ready to leave. I did not intend to write another report so quickly, but a lot has transpired today. First, I agreed to meet with my father to discuss and persuade him to back off and leave me alone. I requested my mother to arrange it for him and no one else. I wasn't sure he'd agree, but within 15 minutes of her calling, he was at the door. I requested my mother to stay and mediate. To paraphrase the talk, my father is in therapy and invites me to join him for family sessions. He wants me to spend one-on-one time with him, to stop being harsh and mean to his children, and to believe in them. He also demanded that I stop trash-talking Janet and invite him and his family to my wedding, including asking him to walk me down the aisle. I, on the other hand, want him to quit talking to my friends and asking others to speak for him. I want him to keep Janet away from me totally, and I agreed to be courteous at events and around town as long as he does not try to hug or chat to me. My mother reminded him that he was being unrealistic about some of his desires, particularly those involving Janet and his other children. For the time being, we've agreed that I'll attend 3 therapy sessions with him as he schedules them. My mother also believes I require individual therapy. He will cease interfering with my life and relationships, keep Janet away from me and ask his children to give me room. I will be courteous with him in public as long as he respects my personal space and does not approach or press me. I still haven't spoken to my fiancé. He arrived at my mother's house, but she refused to let him inside. He keeps blowing up my phone, as do his family and friends, and telling me to listen to him. During my meeting with my father, I discovered that he had paid for the majority of the vendors and services for my impending wedding, and they have been on speaking terms for far longer than I had anticipated. Larry had told me that his family paid for these items and I believed him. I feel betrayed by him, and I no longer trust him. I know I'll have to talk to him someday, but I don't feel ready yet. Update 3. First and foremost, the contract with my father is off the table. He couldn't even go a week without crossing my limits, thus there will be no therapy sessions with him, and I will maintain no contact. After deciding on a course of action, keeping Janet away from me, asking his kids to back off, and respecting my personal space, it only lasted 3 days. Everyone looked pleased that I had forgiven my father and told me so. My sister was thrilled that I was willing to give him a chance, and under duress, I agreed to have dinner with just her and my father. When my sister and I arrived at the restaurant to meet our father, he wasn't alone. He had invited Janet, my grandparents, his son, and daughter. He stood up and attempted to hug me. I immediately grew agitated, wondering why they were there. My father informed me that if we wanted to mend our relationship, I needed to embrace Janet and my younger siblings. I tried to leave after telling him that he had broken our agreement and that he should never contact me again. He wouldn't let me go and took hold of me. When I say all hell broke loose, I really mean it. I began shouting at them, and my father, Janet, and grandparents attempted to gaslight me and persuade me to sit down. When that didn't work, things became heated, resulting in a shouting battle. My father and Janet said many horrible things, including comments about my appearance and dubbing me a psychopath. My half-brother left the restaurant and my half-sister began to cry. My sister astonished me by defending me and accusing my father of wrecking things after I had finally given him a chance. She even slapped Janet. My sister took me out of there and apologized to me. I believe this was the first time she had witnessed Janet's interactions with me and how she handled me. She kept repeating she couldn't understand how Dad had spent years professing he would do anything to get me back, only to sabotage the relationship when he finally had the opportunity to re-establish it. My father has tried to contact me, but I have blocked him and refused to speak to him. I also refuse to speak with my grandparents. My father has tried to get my mother and sister to talk with me, but I believe he has burned his bridges with them. The conflict in the restaurant has spread and some people appear to be backing off. As I already stated, what my father and Janet said to me was inexcusable, and because we live in a tiny town, it spread quickly. Hopefully, individuals will back down, and those that continue to support them will be forced out of my life. My sister is very unhappy with my father and Janet and she refuses to speak to them. She blames them for my continued lack of communication. She is not allowing them to see her children either. I'm not sure if my sister will reconcile, but she is furious right now. My mother is also furious, and she appears to have had a few choice words with my father and Janet. She has agreed not to force me again to communicate with him. I'm going to start individual treatment since I believe I really need it. I feel awful for my half-siblings because they have done nothing wrong. I may be willing to have a distant relationship with them in the future, but I'm not ready yet, and I'm not sure I ever will be. I did send them a note on Facebook to apologize and assure them that they had not done anything wrong. Finally, to inform you all on my fiancé. I chatted with him yesterday about everything. I'd been radio silent since walking out on him. Essentially, he was pressured by his father to speak with my father and was offered a sob story about a misunderstood parent who really wanted to be involved in his daughter's life. Larry was unhappy with me for refusing to attend his family functions and for leaving his mother's birthday party when I realized my father and Janet were present. He was under pressure from his family to not disrupt their activities, and all he wanted was for everyone to be happy and get along, clearly at my price. Larry said that my father had paid for some of the wedding suppliers, but he didn't realize it until after the event was over. His father had informed Larry that he and his mother had paid for everything. My father had informed Larry that it was his way of giving. Larry also revealed that my father had instructed him to speak to me on his behalf. I informed Larry that he had abused my confidence and I couldn't imagine marrying someone who didn't support me. He came down in tears and apologized to me, promising never to do it again. Larry was upset and asked for another opportunity. To all of you who expected me to end our relationship, I apologize for disappointing you, but we will try to work things out. Aside from this incident, he has been the ideal partner, and I sincerely believe he was duped by his family and my father. Larry has sworn to stand up to his family and have no contact with my father. I'm still living with my mother because I need space, which I won't have if I move back home. We will contact our wedding vendors next week to discuss our alternatives. Larry begs for a postponement rather than canceling the wedding completely. We may still break up because actions speak louder than words, and I want to see if he can rebuild what we had and demonstrate that I can trust and rely on him. My father has been attempting to reach me, but I've blocked him. Larry has sworn to stand up to his family and have no contact with my father. There's no point in changing my phone number because I've done it before and my father always gets to acquire it again. Larry is open to the possibility of ending their relationship. I'm giving him an opportunity to show me that he means what he says. I always felt I had a good relationship with Larry's family, but I was definitely mistaken. I'm not asking him to have no contact with them, that is up to him, but I will absolutely separate myself from them. Any additional occurrences will result in no contact. If we are still together and have children, I will not trust his family with them. Update 4. I've cancelled the wedding. I was able to receive some returns, but I lost some money. Larry begged me not to cancel the wedding, but I couldn't marry him after what he'd done. I was determined to give him another chance, and he promised me he would maintain low contact and stand up to his parents, issuing an ultimatum that we would not allow any communication with my father and Janet. He agreed that we would not attend any gathering or party to which they were invited, and that we would not allow any attempts to force contact with my father. Larry met with his family to explain the situation, but when he returned from the discussion, he was agitated and appeared to have changed his mind. He tried to persuade me that his family only meant good and that he couldn't avoid touch with them because he loves them. He also stated that he couldn't control their friendships and tried to reassure me that it wouldn't be an issue in the future. He claimed his father would speak with my father and ensure he acted appropriately in my presence. As soon as I heard this, I started thinking about the remarks I'd read. The primary one is that if we had children, Larry might take them to his family, which includes my father and Janet, and I would have no control over it. At that point, I understood I couldn't trust Larry and would never be able to. I broke up with him. Larry isn't taking it well and constantly begging me to accept him back, swearing he won't contact his family. His family and friends are pleading with me not to stop the relationship, but he has made his decision and demonstrated to me that he lacks courage. I do not need him in my life. In reference to my father, I am considering obtaining a restraining order. Given what transpired at the restaurant, I may be able to, but I'm not sure yet. My acquaintance is assisting me in investigating the matter. My father has kept a low profile since last week, with the exception of a few attempts to apologize, and I haven't heard anything from him. My sister still refuses to speak with my father or Janet. Unlike me, my sister is very confrontational and has attacked them on social media about what happened at the restaurant and other earlier events that I was unaware of. When my sister and Janet ran into each other in town, they had a very public yelling match, with Janet demanding that my sister remove her posts. It concluded with Janet assaulting my sister. My father reportedly sided with Janet in this, and now my sister despises Janet and refuses to speak with our father, who is also attempting to reach her. My father's and Janet's reputation appears to have suffered as a result of the restaurant event, my sister's battle with Janet, and several Facebook posts about them. Individuals are gossiping, which has worked well for me since some individuals have backed down, which I am pleased about. Unfortunately, a few people continue to support him, including my ex's parents. There hasn't been much news about my half-siblings recently. I've located a therapist, but there's a bit of a waiting list before I can begin therapy. I'm still living with my mother, who is completely supportive, and I've found a cat that I'll pick up next week. Update 5. I'm still at my mother's house and I've got my tiny kitten. I named her Sasha, and she is the loveliest thing, yet quite lively. I'll try to take pictures for people who request them, but she won't stay still long enough for a decent shot. I already love her, and my mother continues to be my rock. I'm still waiting for treatment, But I'm finding Reddit beneficial and therapeutic, and the majority of the people here have been quite kind and helped me see things more clearly. So many thanks to everyone. As for my ex, now that we've split up, I feel lighter and more free. Being away from him has made me realize all of the red lights in our relationship that I was previously unaware of, and I feel like I escaped unharmed. Luke, who is using real names because my blogs were discovered, is not dealing well with the separation and has taken over my father's role in continually disturbing me. If you read this, Luke, we're done, and I won't change my mind. So stop phoning me, coming to my house, or sending me flowers. I'm moving on, and you should too. My sister, Emma, is still on my side and has moved on from Janet, the step-monster. My sister informed everyone about Janet's affairs and they are no longer communicating. Janet is still trying to preserve face, claiming my sister is lying and telling everyone that we are the worst and have treated her terribly throughout the years, attempting to ruin her marriage. I don't think anyone believes what she is saying. Janet has sent hateful mails to both myself and my sister. When we ran into her, she yelled at us and threatened us. My sister's car has been keyed and my store windows have been broken. Unfortunately, we can't prove anything, but she's the most likely suspect. My half-siblings are undoubtedly my father's children. They were tested years ago when she was a baby. According to what I've heard, they're not speaking with Janet at all. My father seemed to have grown a spine and kicked Janet out. She is currently living with her parents, according to what I've heard, and he is considering divorce. I haven't spoken with my father since he apologized for everything in a text message. Regarding a restraining order, I'm more concerned with obtaining one against Janet at this time. I have cameras, but you can't tell if it's her due to the angle. I'm getting fitted for better covering. The damage is already done. My father had a chance to make things right with me, but he squandered it. I just want to be alone and get on with my life. Update 6. My father and Janet are still together. They split up for a period but are now back together and maintaining a united face, despite the fact that she is a cheater. Apparently, they tried again for the sake of their children. Strangely enough, my father and I are in a better place. We text periodically and are friendly when we see each other. He has ceased pushing for a relationship and is now respecting my space. We can now be in the same room without generating a commotion, and we've even had the occasional coffee together, which to be honest, is all I ever wanted. He even provided me with my education fund without any restrictions attached. My step-siblings and I have begun to communicate and follow each other on social media. My stepsister occasionally comes to my workplace to assist. I knew they were not to blame, and I was being unjust to them. They are still furious with their mother, but they have to live with her. They're giving her the quiet treatment, as far as I can tell. I still despise Janet, but at least she isn't bothering me. Unfortunately, I was unable to obtain a restraining order against her owing to a lack of proof. I avoid and do not speak to her, and I believe my father has warned her. My sister is conversing with our father again, but she despises Janet and would not have anything to do with her. She goes out of her way to exclude Janet from everything she can, and my sister and I have become closer. As for Larry, we are not and will never be back together. He hasn't entirely accepted it, but things have settled down and I'm no longer hounded as much. He still wants to get back together, but I am not interested. His friends and family will come to accept this. He believes that because things are better between my father and me, I would soften and forgive him, but I can't trust him. As for me, I've started treatment and am working through my issues. I've recognized that my relationship with my father was not entirely his fault, and I share some of the guilt. I spent my life behaving as if he had abandoned me while in reality I had pushed him away. My business is doing great, so I'm just focused on myself right now.